further ado, and Ankur, you can start.
All right. Okay. Yes. I'll move a little bit here. Yes. Hello, guys. So today, my talk will be on deploying an agent. Basically, what an agent is, it's sort of like an AI endpoint, right? That you build for a specific purpose. So it's not like an LLM, though it's built on top of an LLM. It's built like as a sort of way for users to interact naturally with a sort of like reasoning bot without having to like really type in the parameters as like, okay, fill out this form. It's just like you interact with a function in just a natural language. So continuing with that, so what is a reasoning engine? As I said, it's about logic, and the it's basically, for example, if you've ever gone to ChatGPT and asked it some math questions, like ask it for like what is this number plus that number, or like something more complex, it will probably not give the correct answer all of the time, because it's just interpreting it off of the tokens, which means it's not really calling in sort of function. It's just repeating whatever it has, and sometimes what it has for numerical values is not correct. Reasoning engines, basically what it does is you will have a pre-made function that you've written as code, and then you'll have your users call that function just based off of text that they give. So we're talking for this. We'll be using Vertex AI. I'll be showing you that shortly here. And on Vertex AI, you can create reasoning engine endpoints, which are basically just API calls that you can create, that you can call, which you can basically give the parameters as a natural language, and get the answer back as natural language as well. But at the same time, the parameters are restricted, so it's not going to hallucinate. It's not going to give you some random answer. It's going to give you the exact answer based off the exact function you're calling. And if you give it something other than that, it will give you some blanks. So how does it work? That's what we're going to look at right now. So I'm going to switch over right here to the cloud environment that is somewhere here. Yes. So we have a few things up here. This one we'll look at in a little bit. But this is sort of the main script that we, okay, not this one. This one, yes, is the main script that we will be looking at. And what it does is it allows you to test your endpoint function locally, and then on the basis of that, deploy your function. That's exactly the same way. So we're going to look at 4 layers for this. You'll see here. I'm going to go to the end to show you what all 4 are. In color, which is Gemini, the AI model, the underlying AI model, the tool or the function that it will be calling with the code. These two acting should be side by side. The reasoning basically, it will use the model as a way to interpret your language and then call the tool. And then of course finally deploying, which is the deployment of the reasoning engine into an endpoint. So to get started on this here, so if you were to start, you install the pip. This is a free repository. I will drop the link on this a little bit later. But yes, and then restart the endpoint, and this is sort of to initialize the project. These basic administrative stuff. And the storage that you see here, that's the storage bucket name, and a bucket can store basically anything, which is what makes it so flexible. So you see the bucket name right here. which is the one that we are using right now, and it is this is the reasoning engine folder where all of the stuff that we're going to create here is. So looking at that, here we import the reasoning engine, and from there we import the Gemini model. And in fact, I'll show you this part right now. And yes, I think our runtime has initialized successfully, so that should be good. And this is our API that we are going to call. So it's getting exchange rates between certain currencies. So it defaults to US, Euro, and sort of latest. But what I've given it here, for example, is this is PLN, which is Polish zloty, and SEK, which is Swedish kroner. Yeah, if you run that, pretty simple. You'll get the exchange rate between that. For example, if you do euros, you'll get exchange rates between those, and you'll see the date here. If you give which is by default, it'll get you the date the latest date, but you can ask it for certain dates, and that'll come in handy a little bit later when we're calling the actual AI. Yes.
Just a question. Can people ask any questions while you go through it?
Sure.
I'm just a bit mindful that it's quite technical, and if somebody gets lost, you might not be able to follow through. So, does anyone have any question?
Yes.
Can you zoom in one bit?
Oh, yeah, no problem. Let's see. Okay. Yes.
Is that good?
Awesome.
Okay.
Cool.
So yes, just reiterate on that. Then the exchange rate, simple call of this API to get the exchange between two currencies, and this is what we're going to have Gemini call for us. But instead of just calling this API in this way, we're going to call it to natural language. So this is just to get initialize the agent locally meaning on this server. And so I ask it some questions. For example, what is 2 multiplied by 7? It will not give you the output because that's not what it does. It only does this. It doesn't do anything else. So here we see what I'm asking here is what is the exchange rate from euros to Swedish currency today. So yeah, you'll see a lot of the intermediary steps here as well, which is how many tokens were used, like if there is some sort of harmful language, which is something Google looks at with their AI models a lot, and then it just gives you the output here. The exchange from euros to Swedish krona is that, and you see the function being called here, and then if you ask it, change it to week ago, and then ask it to change it from like the Japanese currency to Swedish currency. The Japanese currency is the yen. It will, hopefully, yes, so from the Japanese yen to Swedish krona on, and you'll see this is actually a point here. The date, if you'll note, is not here. This is last year, and that is actually because it is taking the date from itself, and the date for Gemini ends about a year ago from now. So it's sort of taking the date as itself. So this isn't really the perfect demo, but you understand why it is doing that, because like models train up to that point, and then after that point, yes.
Can we add then a tool that will find in now, what is now date, and the week ago?
Yes, because if you're writing a function, you've written this function to get the exchange rate. You can write a function to get today, give it that function, and then it will, yes.
So will it use like the function, like two tools, multiple tools?
Yes, I haven't configured for this one, but I actually do have a script for that in later for a different thing that I can show you. But yeah, yes. So there are things that you need to work around as a programmer. This isn't really to sort of reduce code or to be like, okay, AI is going to replace people who code. Is to make it easier for the end user to use code. So these are tools that developers can use for things like that. So yes, going by that, the next thing to do here is to redefine the agent to sort of remove any sort of stateful information, and then deploy the agent. So deploying the agent will deploy it onto an endpoint, which I did before, but I believe that it's sort of like it shut down, and I wouldn't want to repeat this because like running this, actually you see 4 minutes, but it took significantly longer to actually deploy the agent. It takes around 10 minutes or so. So we're not going to do that right here. But I believe that the variable is here. If it's not, then it's yes, it is still there then. But yeah, yes. So what happens during the deployment is we take the agent, and the agent is just the agent that we have been currently using, and then we turn all the agent into zip files or pickle files, as they're called here, along with the requirements, and we put them into a bucket from which it will be deployed into a cloud endpoint. So you'll see the bucket contains all of the dependencies, the requirements, and the reasoning zip here, and that's what's deployed onto an endpoint. And that endpoint is just remote. It's not connected to this notebook at all. And that's the one that we call. So if you look for like the remote agent's resource name, that's what it is. And if you run this and get the response, you're getting the response from that remote agent and not from the agent that's in the notebook. Now, for some reason, this has under the same concept not worked at the time. But let's see. Okay, yes. So that seems to have been sort of like initialization error. So you'll see this is the agent that we got from here. So these notebooks aren't connected at all, but you're still running it, and you're still getting getting the response. So you have basically deployed it. So if you maybe put a UI on it, where it's like if you put the UI there and just like a simple tab, which is like what, and then type into it basically in HTML. Same thing. It's like if it's a reasoning engine, and it'll basically be like a backend for that specific function that you have deployed. But yes, so this is just to call all of those functions remotely, with testing locally, then calling remotely, and being able to call a function that calls an API that that can give you a result in human language. So, which is significantly, it's pretty good for UI UX design. But yes, going forward from that, these are some of the parameters that you can change. So if you wanted to change the parameters of it, like if you want to change the number of tokens that it could output, if you want to change how much it would hallucinate, or the temperature on it, or like many, if you wanted to remove any sort of like harm category blockers on the AI, you could do that here. But yeah, and the rest of this is just this cleanup. But yes, going back to the question of calling multiple functions, that's something that I've gotten into in this notebook, which everyone can see it, right? Okay. So this notebook runs basically the same way as the other two, but this is just for adding and multiplying two numbers. So that's but that's two different functions. So if we're looking at it in Vertex AI generative models, you have this is a slightly different way of doing it than here, but you just create the function declaration and the generative response, and I have these two functions here. So let me just run that. Yes. And this just to initialize it. So you see I've written two functions. This function is to add two numbers. This function is to multiply two numbers. And if you want it to work with the function calling from generative AI, you have to write it in a certain way. So for example, I've written this variable here as this object is add, which is name, description, and the parameters that you'll get, and that's basically what we'll call this. Same thing with multiply and here. So you have that, and so now the math tool is like it's a library called tool, which basically is like giving your generative AI these two tools, the add and the multiply tool, as a toolbox. So you run that, you get that, and then this is just to initialize the generative AI itself. So initialize the generative AI and give it some instructions that will sort of help it along. For example, fulfill user instructions. If asked to add or multiply, you may call one, and you'll see here you may call one function after the other if needed. So so you basically give it the functions and then have it reason based off of the reasoning that it has as a generative AI. So you may call, and then you just repeat the result to the user. So basic instructions, but they will fulfill our task here. So this is just to extract all of the function calls based off of the input that we'll get from the user. And this will handle the response. So you'll see how the response here. So this is the overall function that the chat will call. So you'll see if the function call it interprets, and this is based off of the interpretation that the chat has of what we input. Is like if it interprets it as add, you run basically the things you need to add. If it interprets it as multiplication, you run this. And yes, I know this seems like a lot of work for just addition and multiplication, but if you are doing even more complex queries, you don't actually have to do more work to actually execute these queries. These variables could be anything. It could be for even more advanced math functions. It could be for a lot of things. So now we are going to the chat part. So it's prompt add 7 plus 7 and 8. Let's see what we get into the function call and response. And it is calling the add function. It's using 7, it's using 8. So handling the response, it calls that, it calls the add function, you get the correct answer here. Yes, it's gotten a little bit untowards here. For example, you can actually have it tell a joke, but you can also remove that functionality somewhere, I believe. But going back to the fact that you can reason with it, is so you see here the chat, you can send it a message, so it doesn't just have to be add 7 and 8. It can be I have 7 pizzas with 16 slices. How many slices do you have? Because it doesn't just understand addition and multiplication, it understands what a pizza is, what slices of pizzas are. So if you run it, it will show multiplication, because it knows that 7 pizzas with 16 slices is 7 times 16. It knows that. So you can have a total of 112 slices. So it doesn't know the math, but it knows the logic, and then we have added the math. Yes?
How easy or hard should be to debug like a response? Because I can imagine like you have like one or two, let's say, functions.
Yes.
It can be like things like additional multiplication, but like progressive, we can get a bit more complex, I guess. Right. So like, how is it debugging? Like, how do you evaluate the response?
Yeah, it's sort of like the generative AI part is sort of the last part you put in. So you can start, I think, like trying this with like functions that you already have, because the main thing that it needs to evaluate is like what is the logic behind the prompt or the question being asked, and what are the variables. And if it gets the correct amount of variables and correct logic, it will call your function. If it doesn't, then like any other, like function call, it'll fail. So yes, it's just it's less about like you're not really changing how like APIs or coding works. It's just adding like a layer of people being able to ask it questions and making it a little more flexible how they can use your code. Yes.
It's like the example that you don't mention the slices. Is it going to ask how many slices each pizza is going to have?
Yes, because it is looking for a certain amount of variables. So if you remove it and you see we'll get each here. I have 7 pizzas. How many slices do I have? This problem can. There you go. It will know to an extent. So there are yes, it does have quite a bit of reasoning, and that's why it's a reasoning engine, is because it will reason based off of what you give it and what you don't give it. So it's quite useful. And again, a similar problem, and this one involves addition. Doug brought 3 pizzas, Andrew brought 4 pizzas. How many pizzas did they bring? And it's not even involving slices here. So total of 7 pizzas. And this is, it takes it a little bit further because you're adding and multiplying 2 functions same time. So it has the addition, and then after the addition, it must multiply. So if you ask it like that, it will add 4 plus 3 is 7, and then it'll multiply by slices. So 7 times 16 is 112 slices. And yes, the addition, it goes a little further than they even see. You see the -2 here, because if you have 4 pizzas, this guy dropped 2 pizzas. How many pizzas are left? So addition by subtraction, -2 for 2 pizzas. So you can take it a little bit further. Yes, we are seeing a few questions. We'll go up to there. Okay, so up there first.
Where you need to orchestrate multiple agents, or is it just a matter of having one function?
It really would depend on the use case. Like if you are orchestrating if you're adding more functions, it's like you're calling one function at a time in the sequence. But if you're calling multiple agents, then you'd presumably be calling multiple functions in like the parallel. So it's like either you're calling in sequence or parallel, I think, is the main sort of thing there. Okay, I will go there then.
Yeah, so my question is, it's a two-part question. So have you tried this with other LLMs or just with Gemini?
So the tool, the library that's given here is for Gemini. They've given so this one sort of like it's the bare bones of it I got from Google, and then I started like working with it a little bit more. But I believe that you can reason. I believe that they have reasoning with this with like Palm, with Llama. I think Claude as well, but it's like they have, because like anything that's on the market in the Google Cloud space, you can start using for this.
I mean, it's using LangChain, so whatever LangChain supports.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
My other question, well, the follow-up question to this is, you split up the prompt, it gets the numbers, and that's how it start computing the thing.
Yes.
My question here is, why not just get that output, put that through a calculator instead of having the LLM do the compute for you? Wouldn't that be less resource intensive? I mean, if I'm trying to run this on a phone or something, wouldn't it make more sense to do that instead of having to like continuously prompt that LLM? I mean, cost-wise as well. If I'm paying
yeah, I would agree. And this isn't really like to show like this is what it does. It's a very simplified demo. Addition, multiplication is something everyone can understand, and this kind of logic. But you can take this logic and apply it to just about as advanced a function as you can make. So it's which will call more resources. This is just to show, okay, this is what you can do, and show it in a simpler way, a more interpretive way. So this is in all senses a demo. Yes. So we're going down. Yes. So you can first.
If we have if we change in the previous example,
Yes.
if we set there are 16 slices per pizza
Yeah.
the second sentence.
Yes.
Will it work the same?
Here.
Like if we put this sentence as a second one.
Oh, so this.
Like,
oh, so you want to put this here? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. If I believe that it does, yes. So 16 slices. Oh, so yes, it does. It does, but it seems to go the logic it goes to is 16 times. It multiplies first and then adds next. So it seems to be like, and that'll happen with most LLMs. It's like the sequence of words will change how it interprets it, but it did interpret it correctly this time. Yes.
Can we just sum up that the AI part transforms user's prompt into certain API calls?
Yes. Yes. The AI part is basically just to be able to take the human language, understand, okay, the context of your question, and then place it in a way that will work with your function or your API.
Okay.
Yes.
That's clear.
Yes. All right. So this was the overall demo. I think we have had quite a few questions, but we're ready for. I think I would say there is time for more questions. Yes. Actually, yes.
One more question.
Well, okay. One more question. If there's.
Like the last bite that nobody wants to take.
Yes.
The last question.
Yes.
What is use case of this, but not in like chatbots or something? Where we can use it?
If you are using it, so there is a case that we have here that I have had to work with now pretty soon for a municipality in Sweden, where basically they said that we want students to have like a sort of chat assistant for their studies, but we only want them to be able to use data from their Google Classroom, their calendar for their schedule, and also like a couple of websites that the school runs, and like a drive that's full of notes from the teacher. So like basically use that, but nothing else. And like for like the notes, you just use regular generative AI. But for like the calendar and sort of like interpreting like the calendar, and for interpreting like the structure of the classroom, you would use something like this, and you'd basically not have to switch between LLMs because the same LLM would work with everything. Yes. Okay, thank you. This is my link tree. If any of you would like to connect me, yes.
One more question.
Yeah.
Can we use certain API calls got from user's prompts for something like context enrichment? Not just only for calling like slices of pizza or something, but for example, in your example with currencies, for example, to pull some data in certain period and provide like use this information like context for AI and provide certain answers for user's prompt using these data as context.
Okay, so like live context, like you're going to input the data based off of like whatever the user has input, and like extract it from like maybe a sheet or like a database, and then use that and then call prompts based off that. Okay. Yes, I believe we do have that. I think like there's a lot of capability for that in Google AI Studio as well, where you can upload files or like use drive files basically in that context. And this would you would be able to use this in that context as well. I mean, like it's just calling a function. So as long as you have the APIs for it, it's just it'll work.
And with that,
yes,
we can go for a break. Ankur, thank
yes.
you so much.
Thank you so much, guys.
Ankur has been with us all day, so grab him for more questions.
Yes.
Coffee is here. The weather is amazing and the sun is out there. So grab your coffee, go outside, let's get some sunshine. We'll be back at 12 o'clock for the next topic. Thank you.